Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today's video is not art related. It's actually something I wasn't sure if I was ever going to talk about on this channel. I didn't know if it was something that I should share, that I wanted to share, but I think it's something that I need to share. I think it will be really therapeutic for me, and if it does help anybody out there understand what they're going through, or just that there's someone there that can relate, then this video will be worth it. Before we get started on this video, I just want to say that I'm not a professional in anything really, but I'm not a professional when it comes to grief. I'm not a professional when it comes to psychology. Nothing that I'm going to say should be taken as medical advice, and this video should not be watched as a replacement to seeking medical help. The videos on YouTube that talk about this and people sharing their stories, they're very helpful when you're going through something, but at the same time, it's still very important to actually seek medical advice. I'll do my best to include some good links down below that you may find helpful. In this video, I'm only going to be sharing things that were my personal experience, and I guess what I wish somebody had told me, or what I wish that I knew while I was going through these things. This year has been incredibly hard for, I think, everybody across the world. It doesn't matter what country you're in, what position you're in financially, what job you had. The pandemic affected everybody, and I think a lot of people are grieving this year and this holiday season maybe more than usual. We've gone through something very traumatic. Lots of people have lost loved ones they didn't expect to lose this year, and I think that it's important to talk about it. Sometimes I get really caught up with gratitude and feeling like I need to constantly be grateful, which is incredible and it's very helpful. But at the same time, I've had a very difficult time with feeling sorry for myself and just having a bad time, I guess. So I want to do that in a healthy way. I want to talk about feeling bad, talk about crappy times, not only positivity, because that's not the way that the world works. That's not the way that we feel emotions. There's not only good. And so often we only see the good on people's social medias, on media. I mean, when we watch a movie, when we get to the end, we want a happy ending. We want to leave feeling some resolve, feeling good. And it's just the way that everything around us is kind of framed. But our own lives, when we're going through it, we can't just come to an ending like in a film. We can't just scroll through our own life as if it's an Instagram feed and only see the highlights. We're forced to experience those really, really troubling times, and because I neglected them so much, I thought that now I should try to acknowledge them, and I should try to encourage other people to acknowledge them as well. If you know me personally, you're probably already aware, but for anybody that is just meeting me now, my name is Kayla. My mom went into the hospital when I was 8 years old, and she remained in hospital until just before my 13th birthday when she passed away. I'm now 22, and it's been quite the journey. In April, it will have been 10 years that I've been without my mom on this planet. But in August of next year, it will be 13 years that I've been without her in my home and without her as a mother role to me. I'm not going to speak extensively on why she went into the hospital and that whole experience. I don't know everything, to be honest. I was so young. I wasn't really told everything, and my family never really spoke about it much. But I will say that she was admitted to hospital, and they began to treat her with the wrong treatment, which caused complications, and that's why she had to stay in the hospital for so long. She never recovered from the complications from that hospital's mistake. So when I was going through the loss of my mom, obviously I was very, very young, and I couldn't expect myself to know what to do, to know how to take care of myself, how to express what I'm feeling to the people around me. But now that I'm older, I'm still telling myself now what I needed to hear then, because grief doesn't just end. I think that you will constantly be grieving. It doesn't get easier with time necessarily, but I think that you do get stronger. The first thing that I want to say that's important to remember is to be selfish. This may sound like a negative thing, but at a time like this, it's so important that you really listen to what you need and what you want. If you want to be with friends, if you want people to constantly be checking up on you, that's cool. If you don't want to hear from anybody, if you don't want to go out and see your friends, that's perfectly fine as well. The people around you will have their own ideas of what you may need, and a lot of times being alone or somebody going through a hard time wanting to withdraw is scary for the people around them. Of course, it's understandable for your family and friends to worry about you, but it's also important that you're honest with yourself and honest with them if that's what you need. There's no benefit in going out and forcing yourself to be happy or forcing yourself to interact with these people and pretend to have a good time, because at the end of the day, when you go back home or when you go to bed and it's just you, you're going to have to deal with those emotions that maybe you had to hide for the whole day to spare other people's feelings, or maybe you suppressed for a while to make other people comfortable. I was very focused on how other people felt and how I was making other people feel through what I was going through. I was very, very hyper-focused on being strong. And I remember this even when I was young, constantly being told how strong I am, constantly being told that people felt inspired by me, my resilience, all these incredible things. And it sounds like I'm bragging here. I'm really, really not, because as nice as those things are, it put pressure on me to be okay. And I constantly wanted to be okay, even when I wasn't. So I was always acting strong. I was always acting like everything was okay. And it ended up causing me to really, really suppress what I was feeling. Being selfish can be a really hard thing to do if it's something that your family is experiencing. You want to be there for other people around you. If you have children, you need to be a pillar at that moment. You need to be strong for them. But if you don't take care of yourself for too long, you won't be able to take care of the people around you either. It's really, really hard to do, but as much as you can, try to be honest with yourself about what you need and what you're feeling. I think that writing really, really helps, because you might not understand what it is, and you might not be able to put it into words very well, but writing something down is helpful, and then looking back at it the next day and being in a different state of mind and seeing what you were trying to express at that time, you're learning and you're growing. The next thing that I want to talk about is self-care. And during this time, during the grief process, it's very, very important to practice self-care. And sometimes self-care looks like taking a shower. Sometimes self-care looks like going to a party with your friends. Your self-care doesn't have to be yoga and meditation. My self-care definitely is not yoga and meditation, and there's nothing wrong with that. Self-care looks different to different people, and that's perfectly okay. Your self-care might be a movie night by yourself, or ordering a pizza with friends, going out for some drinks. It might be getting a new tattoo. It might be just being alone for the whole entire day and just by yourself. The important thing is to recognize that you are practicing self-care, trying to take care of yourself. And right at the beginning, this is very, very difficult, and that's perfectly okay. It's easy for things to be too overwhelming, and taking care of yourself just falls too far down on the list. But over time, and when you feel the strength to put in those little moments of practicing self-care, a huge thing for me was to paint my nails. And as I say that, I only have 3 nails done. I need to do them again. But when I was going through a very, very hard time, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't make my bed. I couldn't shower. I couldn't get out of the house. The small act, I'd tell myself, tomorrow you're going to paint your nails. If I was able to paint my nails the next day, amazing. If not, it's not make or break. It's nothing crazy. I'd try again the next day. But when I did paint my nails, I felt great afterwards. It might have been hard to get myself to do that small thing, but afterwards I felt like I had some strength. And the next thing on my list to do, I felt like that was going to be even easier to accomplish because I'd already checked something off. So it's really important to be doing things for yourself and giving yourself small little steps, small little acts of self-care. be kind to yourself. You're experiencing something that's very, very difficult. And just as you would look at a child with compassion, you need to look at yourself that way as well. Also remember though that self-care should never be destructive. If going out for a drink with friends is a form of self-care, but that happens every single night for a significant amount of time and it starts to affect you negatively, it's no longer self-care and it's actually become a destructive behavior. The same can go with more positive looking self-care. If your self-care is going out to the spa or going on a trip and it just becomes too much and starts to become avoidance, that self-care has also turned negative and it's turned to a bit of a destructive behavior. Now, I say all this stuff, I don't expect you to be able to recognize this in the moment. Nobody expects you to get everything perfectly and to deal with this right, because there is no right way. I'm just speaking from what I know now and what I experienced personally, that maybe it will be helpful for you. And I really had to be aware that my self-care was taking care of myself and that it wasn't avoiding and that it wasn't destructive. Now, I have said that there's no proper way to grieve. There's no timeline. The next tip that I have is to release your expectations. I talked about how I felt so much pressure to be okay and to be strong and to be what I thought everybody wanted to see, was this young girl going through something terrible and being okay. And I thought that that was impressive. I thought that that's the way that I should be. And I thought that I would just be okay, that I would just accept that this thing happened and move on. Life would just be different now. But those weren't realistic expectations. And I don't think we can have realistic expectations for grief, because everybody experiences it so differently. There really is no timeline. For me, I believe that it's never ending. But that doesn't mean it will be as hard at the beginning as it is 5 years later, as it is 10 years later. I don't know exactly how you will begin to heal. I still don't know how I will continue to heal. And the not knowing sometimes may seem like a negative. It may seem scary, but not knowing also means that there's endless possibilities of positivity. After my mom passed away, after her funeral and her burial, I didn't go back to the cemetery for 5 years. I couldn't. It was too difficult. It almost felt like a gross feeling, like a heavy, overwhelming feeling, the thought of having to go there. But it was also heavy and overwhelming because there was a lot of guilt that I felt for never going, for never visiting. And it was a constant back and forth of wanting to go to honor my mom, but not wanting to go because I can't imagine having to feel all those feelings again. I really don't want you to feel guilty for feeling. If it's too hard for you to talk about your loved one right now, if it's too hard for you to look at the photos or to visit their memorial or the cemetery, that's okay. It took a while, 5 years, before I worked up the courage to go back. And I think that the only reason I did was because I had met Patrick and he's my partner. And in the first year of us dating, I was able to really, really open up to him. And I was honest with myself and honest with him that I thought that I needed to go. And I told him this. We both made it our New Year's resolution. And the following year, we visited the cemetery every single month. And it's something that now, 5 years later, we still try to do as much as we can. In that year that he went with me and drove me to the cemetery every single month to visit my mom, I healed more in those 12 months than I did in the 5 years prior. And that's not saying that you want to try to rush this process. I'm just saying that it may seem like it's going slow, but then something incredible might happen and things might get a lot better, or things may be very difficult for a while, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, things get a little bit easier. Within those 12 months, I was forced to confront what had happened and confront what I was feeling. And in January, February, March, when we would visit, I was a mess. As I would be on my way there, I'd be shaking when we'd get there. I'd be crying. It would be a very, very difficult day. We'd talk to each other. I would talk to her. Patrick would talk to her as well. And over time, it was my therapy. It felt so good to be able to go and just release these emotions and express myself and feel what I was feeling and confront what I was feeling. By the end of the year, and now, I go and I visit, and a lot of times I don't cry. A lot of times I laugh. I sit there and I talk to myself. That's what it looks like I'm doing. For me, it feels like I'm sharing these things with my mom that I didn't wear a mascara just in case I got emotional. I didn't expect to get emotional, but figured it might happen. I go there and I talk to her. One of the hardest parts is not being able to share my life with her and wishing that she was here to see everything that I'm doing and everything that I've become. Ooh, sorry. So I go to the cemetery and I talk and I share what's new with me, what's happened, the plans that I have for the future, and try to have that mother-daughter moment as much as I can, even though some of you may believe I'm sitting there with myself. Some of you may believe that she's right beside me, depending on how you view your spirituality, your religion, whatever it may be. That will also affect your grieving process. I grew up in a religious house. I myself am not religious, but I am spiritual, and so I feel her, and I feel that she's there, and it's a very, very therapeutic to go there and talk to her. And I don't need to go to the cemetery to talk to her. Like I said, if you're not ready to go and visit that place, you don't need to. You can sit in your room and just start talking, and I promise you it will feel incredible. And I still do that. Even though I'm back being able to go and visit the cemetery, there's still moments where I might just be in my car having a really hard time and I feel like I need my mom, and so I'll just talk to her. And it's kind of become a comfort for me that she's everywhere I am, that I just want to be able to say this without getting emotional. It's become very comforting for me that she's everywhere that I am and that I'm never alone. So if that's something that, a belief that you share, I would really encourage you to just talk as if they're right there in the room with you. It feels really good. If you have someone in your life that is that person for you, a best friend, a sibling, or a partner that you feel you can really, really open up to, it's going to be hard. I love Patrick so much, and it still took me a while before I really opened up to him. And if you can't open up to a certain person, it doesn't mean that you don't love them. It doesn't mean that they're not special enough for you. It just might mean that you're not ready, or that they just aren't the person for you at that time. And that's perfectly okay. But if there is somebody in your life that you feel even just the slightest that it would help really, really expressing what you need to them in confidence, try to do that. Today, it's been nearly 5 years since I first went back to the cemetery with Patrick, and I don't know who I would be if I never told him and if we never started building that little tradition of going together and reflecting. I think that I would be in a very, very different place with my grief, and a very, very different place with my life and with myself. Now, this is very, very specific to Christmas time. I want to say that you do not need to be jolly. Now, signs and songs all around you are going to remind you that everything is merry and bright, but if that's not the case, you can go ahead and turn them off. I have tried, so I'm telling you from experience, you cannot force a positive attitude. You inevitably will just be suppressing what you really, really feel. I find that gratitude really helps me bring out some positivity or to quiet my negative emotions. But again, if I feel pressure to feel grateful for things, if I feel guilty because I'm not grateful enough for things, then it's no longer really positive. So, as much as you need to feel happy, you need to feel sad. You need to feel angry, and you need to not be okay for a while. Positive and negative emotions are both good. Positive doesn't inherently mean good or only good, and negative doesn't just mean that it is bad. Think of positive and negative emotions as emotions that uplift you and emotions that make you feel down. And they're just two sides. But you can't constantly be going up or you'll fly away. I don't know. You can't constantly be up all the time, and you don't want to just be nothing. You don't want to be numb. You're going to be up and you're going to be down. And then you're going to be up and then you're going to be down. And if you pretend that you're never down, you're not going to be able to experience genuinely going up. And maybe this is something that I need to talk about specifically in another video, how important it is to feel sad and to feel those negative emotions. But I think that that's just a brief little summary. I hope that that made sense. Because although positive emotions are good, a lot of times we might be feeling like, hey, I should be happy. I should be grateful. I should be enjoying every day because I'm here and the person that I love is not here. So I need to make the most of it. I need to look around and just smile at all the little things and be grateful for all the little things. There's a point in your life where those feelings will be genuine. And there's some days when I go on a walk and I feel incredible because I'm able to walk, I'm able to use my legs. My mom was bedbound for 4+ years. So there's moments where I just feel so grateful for what I have and what I can do day to day. But at the same time, I don't need to force those feelings when they're not genuine. And there may be times when you're feeling genuine joy and then feel like you should be feeling sad, feeling guilty for enjoying life without them. Like, I loved them so much. How could I be happy? How could I be enjoying this thing that we used to do together, even though they're not here? And then you try to make yourself feel like you should be feeling sad, you should be feeling guilty. So the negative emotions and the positive emotions just need to be felt. And you don't need to mask one with the other, or try your best not to, at least. And you can stop the holidays completely if you need to. You don't need to go out Christmas shopping for everybody. You don't need to put up a tree or decorate. You can go on a trip if you want. You can tell your friends and family that you don't feel like doing certain things this year. It's okay to kind of just skip it, because lots of friends and family might be having their super happy Hallmark movie Christmases where their families gathered around the tree and it's just all about good times and love and light, and that's beautiful. But that's not what everybody experiences at Christmas time, and it can be a very difficult reminder that you are feeling alone, a very difficult reminder that you're without people that you love dearly. So all in all, I think that I think I got off my chest what I really wanted to say, and I just want to leave you guys with sharing that between me, my dad, and my brother, we all grieved in very different ways. And over time, we've all become way different people than who we were at that moment. During that time, each of us had our own unhealthy methods for grieving, and now, years later, none of us have those same self-destructive behaviors. My self-destructive behavior was avoiding and self-harm and toxic positivity. It's been years since the last time that I've self-harmed. I am just not the same person. And at the time, I couldn't see myself now. When I was going through that, I couldn't look ahead and see that I would be here and that I would be happy. You may not be able to see that for yourself, but I promise you it's coming. Time does heal, and not because things get easier, but because you get stronger. I hope that this video connected with somebody out there. I hope that maybe I said something that you really needed to hear. If you want to share your story down in the comments, that can be very therapeutic as well. A lot of times you may feel guilty for talking about what you've experienced, or you may think that people around you see you as asking for attention or things like that. But it's just sharing an experience, and it's just like talking about, if you were to talk about a vacation that you went on, that would make people feel certain emotions, and you're going to talk about this life experience instead that's going to make people feel certain emotions. It's just another experience within your life that you have the right to share as you want to. And if you want to share nothing, that's perfectly okay too. You don't have to share anything, obviously, and there's no pressure to share anything. I'd love to hear from anybody that wants to say anything. That was a very different video for me to film, but I'm really, really glad that I did. And I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.